Welcome, Dr. Aradhana Mudambi. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me here. So, I think the most important thing to know about me is multilingual education is part of my soul. So, I started school as an emergent bilingual. I entered speaking Tamil, and then I learned English and Spanish at school. So, fast forward as a teacher, I've taught the gamut of everything that's in multilingual education. I have been a teacher of world language. I taught Spanish, dual language bilingual education, taught both on the Spanish and the English sides. I've been a TBE teacher, transitional bilingual education teacher, sheltered English immersion, and I worked as an ESL teacher. As an administrator, I've been a building administrator in a district with 70% Hispanic students and 30% were identified as emergent bilinguals. I've been a director of multilingual in the same district, have built from ground up dual language bilingual education programs, written curriculum for world language, restructured our sheltered English immersion programs, and I've done that same work in another district. And I've worked in 5 countries, in 5 different states in the US. So this is really my passion.
Wow, very impressive. What are some of the key challenges in schools that your book seeks to address?
You know, I just mentioned 5 different programs that are within the, sphere of multilingual education. And whether you're thinking about the state, you're thinking about district, or you're thinking about school, different entities, different institutions have different combinations of these multilingual programs. And oftentimes, in education, we tend to work in silos. And even if these are housed under the same department, we start to really become separate from one another. And this can impact culture. So you have a strand within a school and then the strands don't talk. So it feels like there are 2 schools within the same school, for example. So it can affect culture, and it can also affect how we're providing resources. There's really limited fiscal resources right now in education, and I don't want to be negative, but I don't see that improving. And because we have such limited resources and we have limited time also, and it starts to become difficult to make sure that all the students have the right educational material, that teachers get the professional development that they need. We start to think, what do the SEI teachers need? What do the bilingual teachers need? What do the world language teachers need? And so what I try to do is really look at each of the multilingual programs as a puzzle piece and put it together by looking at what the similarities are. And then I start thinking about how do we also differentiate, right? So this way we can maximize our fiscal resources. We can have our teachers working together, our administrators working together. We can make sure that we're doing professional development for everybody. We can join together in those efforts. And so we're maximizing our resources this way. And in turn, we're going to maximize student outcome.
Wonderful. Are there any other key ideas or takeaways that your book can help address?
Yeah, really 2 of the big things that I really talk about is that regardless of what multilingual program you're talking about, we have to have strong research-based structures for our programs, right? So for example, in my book, I talk about language allocation and scheduling. This is really important regardless of which program you're talking about. Now, it may look different according to the programs, but we have to really think about which language are we instructing in? How much can the language that we're not instructing in come into the program, right? So we have to really think about how all of this fits together. Another example is staffing. That's like the bane of our existence in multilingual education, right? Finding teachers. And so I talk about that because across programs, that's a challenge for us. But then once we have the structures in place, that really sets us up to be able to have good instruction. But that instruction also needs to be research-based. For example, if you think about ORSI, ORSI is really important regardless of which multilingual program you're talking about, because ORSI precedes literacy. And so my book really looks at how do we make sure we have ORSI regardless of program? What does that look like? What are the similarities and what are the differences? Another example would be building schema. We need to make sure that our students have the background knowledge that they need. So how do we build it? How do we activate it? And how does that look the same? And how does that look different across programs? And then there's that hot topic issue, right, of translanguaging. And so I talk about what's the difference between translanguaging and translations. And how does that look in our different programs? Because we want translanguaging in all of our programs, but it's not going to look the same. And so how do we put that together? And so really the three things that I think my book covers is, the first one is that we can work together. I think that's really important, because in education, we have this tendency to work in silos, and we don't need to. We need each other. The next thing is that we need to have the research-based structures, and then the research-based instruction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
we look forward to getting a copy of your new book and reading through it. And I'm certain it'll help a lot of dual language programs in our country improve their systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.